Yo, chill! Welcome back to a brand new video, everybody. We are going to be diving into something very interesting, as a lot of Americans have been making their way outside of the United States of America, finally, and flocking to Europe, many different countries throughout Europe, and they have a lot of complaints. I had a lot of complaints myself, even before traveling through Europe and whatnot, and I haven't been to very many countries in Europe. So, of course, I'm going to be referencing my experiences and adventures through Germany, sometimes the Netherlands, and very rarely Belgium. I went there for one day for a few hours, so it hardly counts. But if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. If you guys are returning viewers, welcome back. If you guys have had any weird interactions with us Americans, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below, because I know I've given you guys quite the runaround. Drop that like, hit that subscribe button. We're chasing 1 million subscribers. Whew, let's do this.
Me the wrong way is Americans will go to Europe and all they'll do is complain about the fact that our plastic caps are attached to our plastic water bottles, that they have to pay for a public washroom, and that the service is supposedly extremely slow in restaurants. And
yo, chill. Okay. Hold on. I definitely just complained about the caps being attached to the water bottles very recently. If you saw my candy video I just dropped. Oh my God, the German caps, dude. Fuck. I realized that the cap was still attached to the water bottle. Obviously, it's for like recycle purposes, things like that. But yeah, I don't know. To me, it's inconvenient because when I'm trying to drink from the bottle and stuff, the cap keeps bonking me in the face. So I have to rip the cap off so I can like drink free willy. You know what I mean? So it's different. Of course, the recycling thing is another point of contention as well. I didn't complain about that too much because I just understand it's done differently in different countries and whatnot. But paying for the restrooms, listen, we got to talk about that. Initially, I had a problem, and part of me still does, but I understand why they charge for public restrooms. But let me tell you something, we paying. That restroom better be immaculate. It better be clean. I just wonder, like, it's like a job like everything else, right? So isn't the state paying for people to clean the public restrooms and stuff like that? Like, not the state, but like the country, maybe the government associated with whatever environment, like, you know, the public restrooms are attached to, right? Don't they pay them very well? Like, what's the point of paying to go to the restroom? If you guys could let me know in the comments down below, that'd be great. I bring my coin with me, so I will pay, but why? Like, it's free in most countries. Like, I'm not crazy. I'm in South Korea right now. All the restrooms are free. I mean, most countries I've traveled to, haven't traveled to many, so there's that. They're free. I don't know. If there's a justification, let me know. Or is it just as annoying for you guys as it is for people traveling throughout Europe for restrooms to have a fee attached to them? Now, I know that's not every single European country, but it's enough to where I'm like, God.
like, okay, I'm sorry that we care about the environment and recycling, that we want to pay our workers for their labor.
Okay, the paying the workers for their labor. This almost to me seems like the same argument that many Americans have had about the tipping service industry. Like, are the corporations not paying the workers enough so that the people have to come in and, like, you know, offer up some coin, whatever? The thing is, paying for the restroom is not optional, so it's not like it's a tip. It's an actual like fee you have to pay, and I guess they get paid from that. So I guess it kind of makes sense. But like, I thought that the people's tax dollars were probably going to funding government things like that, possibly. Because I mean, like, I thought janitorial duties were like attached to like maybe like a government entity or whatever. I could have it wrong though. I'm dumb at the end of the day, bro.
Is that so absurd? But it's also like, okay, you guys have way bigger problems to worry about. Like,
I know. Here we go. Let me know. What are our problems?
Let's attach our caps to our plastic water bottles. You guys need to fix your healthcare, fix your government, including your president, and maybe have a little bit more culture around food and like what it means to share a meal. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm the first one to criticize Europe and criticize my own country, France. We have lots of flaws, but like, those are not the ones that we should be focusing on. Let's rewind for a second, because I think we've lost the plot. But also
Yeah, I know. I got a couple rebuttals, but she's cooking with what she just said, though. I'm not gonna lie. She's like, oh yeah, cool. We got caps in our water bottles. Fix your healthcare system. Okay, how about that? And I'm like, oh my God. Listen, it's not like we can flip a light switch and change that. You can at least lobby for taking those those stringy things attached to your bottle caps and get rid of that. That's an easy fix. Our healthcare is cooked, okay? She did not have to go that hard on us, man. But, you know, somebody has to. So I do appreciate the criticism.
Disclaimer, I'm very much generalizing, and like my American sisters and brothers, I love you guys.
Well, at least she cleared that up, because I was like, dang, she was going so hard on us. I thought she was like, man. So we have a lot of issues we have to fix in the United States, obviously, and it is very pressing, very pressing. There are tons and tons and tons of ways that we can make the United States a lot better as far as how things function. Processes like our healthcare is obviously fried. The safety, the sense of safety in America is completely cooked too. Our whole society literally runs off of capitalism, so we profit off of people's pain, and it's very unfortunate. So all these little things that Americans complain about when they travel throughout Europe, I wouldn't say all of them are not valid, but a lot of them are. It's just like, hey, get used to the culture out there, or, you know, you'll have a hard time adapting, a hard time enjoying yourself. I do think for the most part, when Americans do travel to other countries, we tend to see very amazing things within those cultures, but there are some things we miss, you know, being able to do whatever we want, whenever we want, but also it comes with a caveat because, again, our own country is able to profit off of our pain, and that does tie into doing whatever you want whenever you want. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments down below. We're gonna go ahead and look at these comments over here, man. Defending paying for public restrooms is crazy. That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, how can you guys defend that? What's the defense behind paying for public restrooms? Seriously, because there has to be a corporate entity that pays for the people cleaning those restrooms. Random people traveling to go to said country, right? I guess unless it's like a very special experience or something, why are we paying to go to the bathroom? I mean, like almost every bathroom. I don't know. It seems weird to me. It seems real weird to me. But again, that's just my opinion, right? There's definitely a whole ideology behind it. There's a reasoning for why things are the way they are. So if you guys could let me know why that is, I want to hear you guys out in the comments down below. So bad. I know there's a reason behind it. Culture around food. Meanwhile, the U.S. is a nation full of immigrants with the most diverse cuisine anywhere on the planet. But sure, I do agree with that. America has one of the most diverse bouts of cuisine literally anywhere. I mean, Europe also has a very diverse palette of cuisine as well. If you go anywhere throughout Europe, there's a lot of different things, places, cultures, whatever, that have different dishes that they offer up, right? But same thing in the United States. The United States has people from Europe, from different European countries, from different Asian countries, from, you know, other parts of the Americas and stuff, and Australia, all over the world, all living in one place, right? And because of that, it has had such a pivotal impact on the food culture in the United States. I will say, I disagree with her on the lack of diversity in food in the United States. She probably went to one of those very like bland areas, but most places in America have a wild assortment of different foods. And I think that that's a cool thing, right? That's one of the few things we can at least brag about, right? We have amazing cuisine, right? Not the American hot dogs and pancakes, burgers, stuff like that. I'm talking about like supreme dishes, dude. Like you get that it's stuff that you'd have to taste and see to believe. But for my people who have traveled to the United States, maybe you could vouch for that in the comments down below, because I do think that we have a very diverse sense of what is available to us for food. Now, our food standards is another topic, okay? You guys let me know how you feel about that in the comments down below. But our next comment says, I'm European and I get annoyed by the caps attached to water bottles. It's okay to complain about things. Doesn't take away from other things in real life. Yeah, I'm like, damn, she got real defensive, bro. Like, they were just complaining about the caps in the water bottles, paying for the restrooms. Those are inconveniences that are very valid in my opinion, but okay.
I find this post absolutely ridiculous because, yes, people will go to Europe from America and say that it stinks. But when Europeans come to America, like Los Angeles and New York City specifically, they'll also say it stinks.
Dang. Dang, that's a wild comeback, dude. So very interesting point. Of course, in this area, right, there's always going to be smelly parts of any country you go to. In this case, anywhere in Europe, these people are like, oh, and it stinks everywhere. I'm like, you could say the same thing about the United States if you just continuously go to places that smell bad, right? But there's many countries that, I mean, Italy, I don't know what Italy smells like. I've never been to Italy, but I could imagine there's many places in Italy that don't stink. And there's also many places in Italy that also smell horrible, right? Just like if you go to anywhere in Illinois, there's many places in Illinois in the United States that smell great. And there's many places in Illinois in the United States that don't smell that good. So
let's just be honest with all of ourselves. Just let's be honest for a second. There are many places that will stink. That doesn't mean that Europe sucks. That doesn't mean that America sucks. Hell, that doesn't mean any other country or continent sucks.
I do think that America has quite a bit of issues where we can almost borderline say it's not faring too well right now. But he does raise a very good point, a very good point. Every country, every continent, every plot of land has its ups and downs and issues and whatnot. And it is very, very, very good that he was able to point this out, because there are people like, well, your country does smell bad. I'm like, but I can point out some places in your country that probably doesn't smell the best either. You know what I mean?
It's just a part of life, which in turn we could get into a whole other subject of why these places stink. And without going into detail, they shouldn't stink, but it's because of the governments allowing these specific situations to happen. People like to always think that their country is better than any other country. It makes perfect sense.
It's not, I disagree with that too. So yes and no, right? There are people that are like, oh yeah, my country is the best country in the world, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of what the European versus America stuff is people from Europe, they're like, hey, like, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but you guys have a lot of problems. And we're saying this because you guys keep claiming that you have the greatest country in the entire world to people from the United States. And we're like, oh, really? Well, you guys are so perfect. You guys got this problem and this problem and this problem. But we don't really hear Europeans are saying that their country is the greatest country in the world. I think that's the part that's misunderstood a lot. It's a lot of people from Europe offer criticism. They're like, hey, there are these things going on. Maybe your country would be the greatest country in the world like you claim it is if you fix these big ass issues. And then, of course, instead of us going like, yeah, you know what? We appreciate that. We'll fire back like, man, you know what? Your country's not great. You guys got this, this, this. Now, we can criticize other people back. That's not a problem. But deflecting and almost like borderline not acknowledging that we have an issue in our own country is also a problem. You know what I mean? Like, so I get no one feels good when they're under the microscope being overanalyzed and stuff. But I do think that the road to making your society a livable place that you're able to appreciate starts with being able to accept that you have problems where you live. So I think like that the point of like, oh, okay, your country's not that perfect, doesn't come from a point of malice. It's just it's like a matter of factism, because a lot of Americans do say that their country is the greatest country in the world, not ironically. And I'm not saying it's a small minority. It's almost a vast majority of Americans. I mean, we're very proud. We're patriotic. I mean, we're so patriotic. That is one of the running memes globally for most Americans. And I get it, right? But when people are poking holes in how perfect our country is, and they're like, hey, look, you guys have this big problem going on, this other big problem going on. Did you know that the president recently said that the word affordability was a liberal propaganda word? I'll just let that sit with you for a little bit so you can process what I just said. But affordability being a liberal ideology, wouldn't everybody benefit from things being affordable? Right? Like, and yet America, the greatest country in the world. So it's just like, you know, we get back into these things. Now, there are plenty of issues throughout Europe. Trust me, we are seeing it on the news. There are plenty of issues. But the difference is there are a far lower percentage of people throughout Europe saying that their respective country is the greatest country in the world than people from the United States. It's almost like we got this crazy Stockholm syndrome thing going on.
Just be all honest with ourselves. If you're going to go travel to another country, just know it's not going to be perfect. I find this post absolutely
And I do agree with that. Literally, I do agree with that. When you travel to any country, accept that it's not going to be perfect. Also, do your research before you travel to said country so you can have less of a contentious experience. Learn to speak at least a few phrases of the language in the country you're traveling to. You don't have to be fluent, but at least know enough to navigate a bit so your experience is not detrimental. Also, make sure you have the appropriate travel kit so you're able to charge your devices, navigate more efficiently, and know where to find help, right? Because a lot of people go into these travel, expeditions blind and wonder why their experience was as rough as it was. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what the comments had to say and what you guys have to say. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. But our first comment says they probably only go to London or Paris, but if you go to some random forest in Sweden, it's not going to stink. And I think that's the point that was trying to be made, right? Every place has smelly spots. Every place has spots that don't smell. It's just kind of how it goes. Most cities worldwide stink. They don't smell good, right? There's a lot of industrialism and stuff. You got fuel everywhere, people doing all kinds of stuff. You got millions and millions of people crammed in a small surface area. So of course it's going to smell bad. To be fair, I'm in the UK and a lot of our train stations smell of wee. Newsflash. Many stations worldwide smell like that. There are some train stations in South Korea that smell like that as well because people get drunk and they don't want to go find a bathroom, so they just use the bathroom on the walls. What's crazy out here in South Korea, though, is there is CCTV, so they know exactly who did it. You're constantly being watched. Well, true. It's because we're so used to our own aroma, but more specifically, overpopulated places will smell nasty. And that's exactly what I was saying. Overpopulated places are going to smell pretty bad most of the time, and places that are not as populated are going to smell a lot better. That's just kind of how it tends to go.
Of propaganda that Americans regularly consume is astonishing. I'm probably consuming some. We all probably are unaware of it, right? We all have our blind spots. But as an American that has been out of the country more times than I can count, my first international trip was when I was a year old, included coming to England. I've just always had a little bit of an edge on them because I'm not as ignorant and have been able to spend time outside the country. Hi, my name is Rebecca, and I am an American that has left America and I'm searching for my forever home. And now that I am residing in Europe, I regularly get people that believe some crazy stuff about this area, one of which is certain things being way worse than the US and the US just being perfect or much better. And it comes from a lot of white Americans that have not traveled, right? So they're very much privileged, not necessarily part of a marginalized group in the traditional sense, but at the same time, they're generally uneducated and unexperienced. I think
what she's saying has some truth to it, but I don't think it's limited to just white people in the United States. It's everybody. It's literally everybody. White people, black people, everybody in between. We just have this idea that our country is free of any type of issue at all. But then we turn around and we're like, well, why aren't we getting this? Why does this cost so much? Why does this group of people get this and this group doesn't? We have a lot going on. And I think that a way where you can prevent people from leaving a country that is essentially mistreating its people in a lot of major departments is by ridiculing and spreading propaganda about those other places. Like, oh, you should never go to and visit China. You should never go visit anywhere in Europe. You should never go visit anywhere in Asia. Don't visit Australia at all, like whatever, because they're all horrible places. There's creatures that could snatch you up and pull you into an underground and eat your flesh off your body. The governments are too strict, so the second you step foot through the threshold of their land, they'll detain you just for looking at them weird. Things like that, right? And of course, we're in a day and age where people refuse to do research. They refuse to do their own research. Critical thinking is virtually almost dead. Common sense died 10 years ago plus, right? So imagine people think that the first thing they see on their feed is to be believed because our attention spans are so cooked. And of course, the United States government takes advantage of that. I'm pretty sure a lot of other governments take advantage of that as well. And they pump out a lot of interesting propaganda pieces where people are like, oh, see, like I would never travel to Germany. I mean, like, what if, Hitler's still there? Or what if like they still got the whole, like the thing going on from like, the 40s and stuff like that. And I'm like, bro, You can open up any website and do the research yourself. Like, this is nuts. And it's interesting because when you do get people like that refuse to travel, it only solidifies really messed up ideologies that have us running in place where we reside. I feel like, and like I've told you guys this a million times, the path to creating a safer, more desirable environment to live in is travel. If you travel, you're able to witness and experience firsthand what works for that country and what doesn't work for that country, and what would work for your country from what you're experiencing in said country you travel to versus what would not work in your country based on what you've seen and experienced in said country you've traveled to. I think that's pretty obvious, but again, I used to be an individual that did not want to travel because I thought that the United States was so diverse and so vast that there was no reason for me to leave the country at all. I bragged about that at one point. I'm like, dude, America's so diverse. Oh my God, they have so many people, different kinds of backgrounds and stuff. Why would I want to travel to any other country outside the United States? That makes no sense. Like, why would anybody want to leave? But it's to make your environment better and just to have a better worldview. I feel like the world becomes so much smaller when you travel. It's so much bigger than the area you reside in. Because of course, I brought this up to you guys before about the idea of being well-traveled versus not being well-traveled, right? A lot of people in the United States think that they're well-traveled if they travel to all 50 states and just stay in the United States. Other people globally are like, no, you definitely did travel. You are an experienced traveler. Well-traveled has to do with being able to experience many different cultures, laws, governmental structures and stuff like that, right? You have to collect different currencies and stuff because each government is entirely different and they function differently. There's some things you're allowed to do in one country that you're not allowed to do in another. Like you have to go through border control, customs, things like that, right? That's all a part of being well-traveled. But again, everybody has their own definition of that. If you guys want to let me know what you think as far as what your definition of that term is, please let me know in the comments down below. I've been asking this question in a lot of my recent videos for good reason.
A place of lack of privilege, right? Privilege comes in different forms. So my privilege being pale and then also educated and well-traveled. I posted something on my Instagram today showing about Spain being voted for how high the quality of life is there. That's our next spot after being in the UK for 3 months. And I had someone who I know has done very little traveling and is definitely on the blue side and left side, but is not as educated as most. She was convinced that racism was so bad, she's white, in Spain, she would never go there or visit. That's what happens to many Americans. They just convince themselves things about other countries. They see tourists being squirted with squirt guns at 1 10-minute incidents in Barcelona, convinced their lives would be in danger, while they have regular homicides in their tiny town. It's truly astonishing.
That's another thing, bro. Oh man, I think we've just gotten so desensitized to the chaos in the United States that to us, it really is the greatest country in the world. We can have weapons to defend ourselves if anything wild happens. We can go anywhere, pretty much feel like we can do anything. But when you peel back the layers of this real like naked onion, bro, like we have homicides out the wazoo everywhere, and it's unpredictable. There's safe places in the United States that have been going crazy because, you know, the mass shootings have been getting out of control, and there's just a lot of different things. Our police departments, man, de-escalation training is optional in a lot of places. In a lot of police departments, it's optional to take on de-escalation training, and it shows because there's this huge contention between the people and the police. Now, that is also a global thing from, you know, different countries, blah, 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 blah. But the United States in particular has an issue because it feels like we have a force of inexperienced or somewhat borderline incompetent officers that navigate and handle the people. Not everybody, but enough of them to where it's been causing problems. There are so many issues that we have that we refuse to acknowledge, and that is my problem, right? We refuse to acknowledge that we have a problem. And yes, we can point out other people's problems too, but it doesn't take away that our problems still exist. So, I don't know. What's the solution?
That in the UK, with the UK, people being convinced that their life is more in jeopardy here in the UK or rest of Europe look it up. Most of the times it's like you're almost 10 times more likely to be killed just existing in the USA than you are in the UK or Spain. You can look up multiple other crimes, most of the ones you don't want to be a victim of.
Yes. Another thing as well is just because we're saying that America does have more crime and, issues and stuff in some areas than many places in Europe doesn't mean that Europe is completely devoid of any issue, any crimes, whatever. Generally speaking, as a human being with a conscious brain cell in that skull cap, you should be functioning very cautiously no matter where you go, especially when you travel anywhere, right? You could travel in your own country, you can travel outside your country. Be very cautious, be very aware of your surroundings, and have contingency plans just in case, because the world is full of messed up people, no matter what culture you decide to dive in, right? There are horrible people everywhere. So you need to be able to plan around the fact that there are horrible people everywhere, and also just adjusting to the terrain that you're traveling to, because a lot of people don't do that. And then they wonder why they get scammed or are worse.
You will find that you're more likely to be a victim of those violent crimes in the US than you are here. Maybe things like pickpocketing and petty theft. No. There's a reason for that, why people do not try to pickpocket Americans. I could go on about this topic, but it's pretty sad, the amount of propaganda that people have drank, and in a way it just keeps them stuck in the unhappy place known as the US. And we are very thankful to be out. And even though it was my husband's first time on this side of the pond, I think he knew it was going to be better, and he's still so surprised every day with how much better it is, and how much better people are, and the life here is truly just such a higher quality than it is in the US. And we're, again, come from a very privileged income bracket and things like that. It's noticeably better here.
I think what's interesting when we look at the differences between the United States and most countries throughout Europe, right, is the quality of life is significantly better in any of those countries in Europe than the United States, right? Because it's very apparent that the United States doesn't really give 5 to 6 fucks about its people. You know what I mean? Like, we say we do, but we truly don't. You know what I'm saying? We really don't. It's been quite evident, very evident. They care about people that can provide coin, a lot of money, right, to the nation and stuff. They care about exploiting people for sure, but they don't truly care about the people like they say they do. And it's so sad. It's so sad. But they do it in such a strategic way where people are like, yeah, like we're being taken care of. But all of a sudden, your claims are getting denied when you go to a hospital and stuff like that to make sure that your loved one is being taken care of. But of course, like, their insurance apparently mystically doesn't cover the injury that they sustained when they go to that hospital. So now you have to fork up like millions of dollars and stuff from GoFundMe. Did you guys realize that this year they noticed a dramatic increase in financial support for things like food, bills, daily things that Americans were struggling for? They're getting support from GoFundMe because our country isn't taking care of the people like it should be. Right. I think we will get to a point where we will be a lot better, but I think right now it's pretty bad. It's obviously bad. It's almost laughably bad. Yep. It's wild that people in the US use UK knife crime as an argument against gun regulation. UK knife crime is less than US knife crime too. That's facts. I mean, honestly, we bring up how often people get knifed in the UK, and that is a problem, right? But people get shot and stabbed in the United States far more often than people getting knifed in the UK combined. You know what I mean? Like, if we only use the UK knife crime statistic and the United States knife crime statistic, the United States has an overwhelmingly higher amount of knife crimes than the UK. Also, the United States is much bigger than the UK, so there's also that. As a Spaniard, it bothers me when people try to import problems from their countries. We're in Europe. Things like blackface, staring, hospitality service, or a more direct way of speaking have one meaning in the United States and a very different one in Spain or elsewhere in Europe. Calling simple cultural differences racism only dilutes the meaning of the term in truly serious cases. Spain or other countries has many problems to solve, and to address them effectively, it's important to understand their own realities. That's also another thing that irritates me, and I've done it myself, so I'm not innocent of this, right? But when a lot of Americans like myself travel to other countries for the first time, we impose our own defaultisms on said country. We expect the country we're traveling to operate and function like the country we just came from, the countries that we're from. It's insane because we can't effectively identify a problem over where we're traveling if we don't understand the ideologies and the cultural significance in those countries, right? If we're implying our rules and statistics and whatever on those countries, we truly will not be able to understand what their issues actually are. So we'll be perceiving their issues as being one thing when it's entirely different. And I think that's another thing that's very different when it comes to Europeans pointing out criticism in the United States versus the opposite way around. A lot of Europeans typically look into the multifaceted set of issues in their countries and other countries globally. And so they're a lot more well-versed than your average American, right? We see what's going on in the United States, and then we kind of just like, yeah, well, this is generally bad. Like it's pretty bad to not tip your servers. So why aren't you guys tipping your servers over there, Europe? And they're like, what do you mean? Like that's not a problem. Like we pay our people well, it's good, but we do have other issues. Like you have to be able to discern the difference between the rules and regulations of the place you just came from and the rules, regulations, and cultural differences and where you're going to. Travel truly does broaden the mind. And I agree. Travel absolutely broadens the mind. It broadens how you're able to navigate the world. It expands your tolerance for sure. And it allows you to be a lot more open-minded. I think the people who are historically the most closed-minded have never left their own town.
Folks on here, I have a question. Quite a lot of videos of American people sort of generalizing Europe and Europeans as though Europe is like one place.
Genuine question for Brits and Europeans. Do you think of other countries other than the US? Because I can't believe how much this comes up on this app. If you weren't so hyper focused and like you could see anything past the US, it would be really obvious that most countries that are not in Europe refer to Europe in this way. This is an Aussie in Europe itinerary. This is an Australian comparing Australia and Europe. This is the South African talking about tips for Europe. Canadian talking about what it's like living in Europe. I just never see people asking any other country this when it's really prevalent. And just to throw in some non-English countries, this person I believe in Mexico, don't hang out with a European without knowing these things. This one's from South Korea, things that'll shock you about Europe. And this one's from Egypt, hopefully you get the point. Also, when people from Europe refer to themselves as Europeans, any reasonable person is going to use the same terminology. You'll find hundreds of examples of this on this app. And the last thing I want to say about this is that you guys do the same thing for other continents. This guy appears to be from the Netherlands, but Algeria doesn't feel like Africa. What does that mean? I hear Europeans saying all the time, like, we're planning this trip to Africa, or like, I haven't been to Africa yet, which sounds like you're trying to generalize a continent with 54 countries and over 3,000 languages. And then we have this Brit speaking on all of South America, and it turns out he's only been to Colombia. Look, I know these kinds of posts get views, but please, let's just try to look a little beyond the US and let's just have a little self-awareness. Everyone has cultural blind spots. It doesn't matter where you're from.
American folks on here, I have a question.
Yeah, very, very, very good point. Because I was reminded a bunch, like, hey, like, you understand that Europe is a continent, not a country, right? But the very same argument can be used for Africa and Australia and any other continent with many countries in it and stuff as well. A lot of people will refer to the people within that continent as one thing, you know? And again, you know, if the people from those continents refer themselves as one unanimous thing, then of course that's what's going to be reflected on the internet. And I think that just boils down to how people want to be perceived, and it makes it pretty interesting. But it is more interesting too that America has been catching a lot of flack for that. But we are a very easy target, especially in times like these. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the comments had to say. But just because people do that, does it mean they should? True. But it happens quite a bit. It happens quite a bit. What are your thoughts and feelings on that, though? Like, is there a reason why America is taking the most flack, or it seems like America is taking the most flack in regards to calling Europe an entire, not country, but like referring to it as if it is an entire country versus the continent that it is? But it's still, I mean, but every other country does, like every other group of people does that as well, right? Canadians do it. You know, she was saying like, you know, people in South Korea do that all the time. South Koreans do it. People from all over the world do it when it comes to referring to Europeans as Europeans. I mean, you're European, and then you're like, you know, you're also whatever denomination of whatever country you came from, right? Like, cool, like from this continent, they're this, but then obviously from this country, they are also this. Also, when it's time to compare the US, they collectively use Europe. Very true, very true. I think the reason why there has been an uptick in people comparing all of Europe to the United States is because there are some striking differences between every single country throughout Europe and the United States that are common denominators, right? I'll just bring up one thing and one thing only: vacation time. In the United States, no matter where you go, it's normal to receive 2 weeks vacation out of the entire year, nothing more. In all of Europe, that's not a sentiment that is a thing at all. 2 weeks is abominable, right? That is abominable. There's not a country in Europe that would be okay with its people taking less than 20 days of vacation. You know what I mean? That's at least it's offered up. That's like a thing. So I think that's why there are these like vast comparisons and generalizations between Europe and the United States. You know what I mean? There's a lot more. It's like, again, the quality of food, quality of life, valuing living over working and stuff like that. Things of that nature, you can kind of attest to all of Europe and compare that to the United States. You did the deep dive. She did, in fact, do the deep dive. And on that note, we are going to wrap this video up. You guys let me know exactly what you think about what we covered today. This was very interesting. This was almost like criticism on the complaints Americans make about Europe, but also rebuttals against a lot of those complaints that Americans make about Europe as well. So we had a lot of back and forth in this particular video. So let me know how you guys feel about that.